All right, so strap yourselves in because we're going deep on some pretty wild developments in the AI world today. Nvidia, the company basically synonymous with this whole AI explosion, well, they just had the biggest single-day stock drop in history.
Yeah, it's $400 billion just gone like that.
Just poof, gone. And this all went down on Monday, January 27th, 2025.
Yeah, and the ripples are still being felt.
Absolutely. And what's even crazier is the cause DeepSeek
A Chinese AI company.
that most people in the West had never even heard of until a few weeks ago. It's like they emerged from the shadows and suddenly Silicon Valley is in a full-blown panic.
Yeah, you've got major players. I mean, Microsoft, Google,
Even chip manufacturers like Broadcom and ASML.
all taking a hit.
It's like the entire tech world is wondering if this is it.
If this is the power shift.
Yeah, is DeepSeek the sign that things are changing?
Well, it's certainly a David and Goliath situation. I mean, you've got DeepSeek, founded just back in 2023, going up against these titans. And they're claiming to be doing it with a fraction of the resources, too.
Okay, so give us an example of that. What are we talking about here?
Okay, so their V3 model, right? They say they trained it for just $5.6 million.
While their competitors are spending how much?
10 times that.
10 times.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously. I mean, are they cutting corners somehow? Is this even possible?
Well, there's definitely some skepticism floating around about their actual costs. Some experts think they must have gotten their hands on those restricted Nvidia H100 chips.
The ones the U.S. banned from being exported to China?
Yep, that's the theory. But DeepSeek insists that they're sticking to the older chips.
The ones that are easy to get.
Readily available, yeah.
Okay, so how are they doing this? I mean, is it all smoke and mirrors, or is DeepSeek actually onto something revolutionary?
That's what we're going to unpack.
Please do.
One of their secrets seems to be this mixture of experts model architecture.
Okay, hold on, back up. Mixture of experts. Explain that to me.
So it's like this. Instead of building one massive AI model, they're combining lots of smaller ones, more specialized models. One's an expert in a specific area.
So instead of one giant brain, it's like a team of specialists.
Yeah, exactly. And that way, they can save a lot of computing power.
Which is expensive.
Hugely expensive. One of the biggest costs in AI development.
They're working smarter, not harder.
Precisely. They're also using this technique called test time compute.
Test time compute, okay. What is that?
So basically, their models only ramp up the processing power when they absolutely need to.
When?
During inference. That's when the model is actually answering your request, like when you ask it a question.
So they're saving energy, essentially.
Yeah, and they're boosting performance, but without blowing their budget on the initial training.
That's brilliant. So they're totally challenging this idea that you need the absolute biggest, most powerful hardware to make progress in AI.
Yeah, they're going against the grain. And it raises some interesting questions. Like, could this lead to something called the Jevons paradox?
Jevons paradox, what's that?
It's this idea that when something becomes cheaper and more efficient,
Like AI.
right, like AI,
Yeah.
it can actually lead to increased demand for the resource it was supposed to save.
So cheaper AI could actually make those advanced chips even more in demand in the long run because more people will want to use it.
Exactly.
That's fascinating.
Now, moving away from the purely technical side, let's look at the geopolitical situation.
Because DeepSeek's success, it's not just about tech.
Right. It's being seen as a symbol of China's growing power.
And they did it despite U.S. sanctions.
Which makes it even more significant. Like they're thumbing their nose at the idea that America controls the tech world.
Yeah, it's a direct challenge.
And this has massive implications for investors.
Because they've always favored U.S. tech companies, right?
Historically, yes. But now they're having second thoughts.
Are these giants actually overvalued?
Right. Is the whole AI bubble about to burst? These are the questions everyone's asking.
It's definitely a wake-up call. And it's all happening at a time when this concept of tech sovereignty is gaining traction.
Yeah. Nations want to control their own tech destiny.
Especially when it comes to AI.
Especially AI. They want to reduce their dependence on other countries.
It's like the energy independence movement, but for technology. Like the European Union with their data privacy regulations, that's part of their push for tech sovereignty. And DeepSeek's rise, it could really accelerate this trend, right? As more countries realize, hey, we need to be able to stand on our own 2 feet when it comes to AI.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've got this geopolitical tension, and then there's DeepSeek's open source approach. They're releasing their models under an MIT license, so anyone can use them, even commercially.
Yeah, it's a stark contrast to how a lot of Western AI projects operate.
It's like they're saying, hey, here's the recipe, come and get it.
It's a bold move, that's for sure.
It could be seen as genuine, like they want to democratize AI, make it accessible, help everyone.
Yeah, foster collaboration and innovation. Tailor solutions to specific needs.
But there's also a strategic angle, right? I mean, is this China's way to get around export controls, to gain global influence?
Yeah, and collect massive amounts of data. Think about it. The more people use DeepSeek's models.
The more data gets fed back into their system.
Exactly. And what could they do with that data? What are the risks of manipulation? These are questions we have to ask.
Open source has the potential to speed up progress, but it also opens the door to potential vulnerabilities.
It's a double-edged sword.
Okay, so we've talked about the tech, the impact on the market, the geopolitics, but let's bring it back to that Nvidia stock plunge for a second. That was just the beginning.
The tip of the iceberg. DeepSeek is making everyone reevaluate the whole tech landscape.
Because suddenly, all those sky-high valuations don't look so certain anymore.
Right. Are U.S. tech giants overvalued?
Are their profit margins about to shrink because they have to compete with DeepSeek's low-cost model?
These are the questions that are keeping investors up at night.
Driving that market correction.
Yep.
We could be witnessing the end of the tech bull market.
It's a dramatic turn of events, and it all comes back to this relatively unknown Chinese company that's turning the AI world upside down.
Is just as unconventional as their technology.
So their funding structure.
Yeah, let's get into that.
It's completely different from what we see in Silicon Valley. They're fully funded by a Chinese hedge fund, Highflyer.
Which is interesting because...
Well, for one, it also happens to be co-founded by DeepSeek's CEO, Liang Wenfeng.
So it's not like they're answering to a bunch of venture capitalists or Wall Street.
They don't have the pressure of those quarterly earnings reports.
They have a lot more freedom to experiment, to take risks.
Exactly. They can play the long game. And you see this reflected in their, quote, no excessive profit philosophy.
That almost sounds too good to be true for a tech company.
Especially in this environment.
Cutthroat is an understatement.
But it's not just marketing. It's baked into their entire business model. They prioritize R&D over quick profits.
Okay, so how does that actually work in practice?
Well, they keep their operating costs incredibly low. For example, they prioritize talent over experience.
But they're not necessarily going after the big names, the people who command the highest salary.
Exactly. And then their pricing strategy is forcing the competition to adapt.
Or get left behind.
Yeah, they could get priced out of the market entirely.
It's like they're playing a whole different game.
And the old guard doesn't know the rules.
Okay, so let's talk about one of DeepSeek's most recent achievements, the DeepSeek R1. This model is being hailed as a breakthrough in what they're calling reasoning AI.
This is a big deal.
Yeah, break it down for us. Why is this so significant?
Okay, so to understand why this is such a leap forward, we need to look at how the traditional large language models work.
Right. They're great at mimicking human language.
Yeah, they can generate text, but they struggle with complex reasoning.
Like they can write a poem, but they can't solve a logic puzzle.
That's a good way to put it. They're basically pattern matching machines.
They see a pattern, they repeat it.
Yeah, they're trained on these massive data sets and learn to predict what comes next. But when you ask them to think logically, step by step,
They get lost.
oh, pretty much.
So more parrot than philosopher.
Exactly. That's where the reasoning models come in. They're designed to break down problems into smaller steps, evaluate those steps, make sure they make sense, and then they put the pieces together to find a solution.
So it's not just recognizing patterns, it's actually thinking things through.
Exactly.
Okay, so where does DeepSeek R1 fit into all this?
DeepSeek claims that R1 can actually outperform OpenAI's O1 model on a bunch of different reasoning tasks. And they're supposedly doing all this with way less computing power, which is incredible.
Again, they're proving that you don't need the most expensive hardware to make breakthroughs.
Right. But how they're doing this with R1 is still a bit of a mystery. They're not saying much about their training process.
Which is leading to a lot of speculation. Some people think they must have gotten their hands on those banned Nvidia chips after all.
But DeepSeek denies it completely. They insist they're using older, more readily available hardware.
Which just adds to the intrigue.
Right. Like, what's their secret?
It's the secret sauce.
DeepSeek is fascinating because they're disrupting the industry at every level. The tech, the approach, everything.
Okay, so we've talked about DeepSeek, their technology, the impact they're having, but let's bring it back to the average person for a second. What does DeepSeek's rise actually mean for them?
That's a crucial question because AI is already affecting our lives in so many ways, from the recommendations we see online to how we interact with our devices. And DeepSeek is likely to accelerate those changes, make AI even more pervasive.
So potentially we're looking at a wave of innovation.
Right, new tools, new services, and AI becomes more affordable.
But there's a flip side to that, right?
Absolutely. There's also the potential for misuse.
As AI becomes more powerful, more readily available.
The risk of it falling into the wrong hands definitely increases.
So this isn't just a conversation for Silicon Valley.
No, this is a conversation for everyone.
We need to be thinking critically about how we use AI and what safeguards need to be in place.
Exactly.
We've talked about DeepSeek's unconventional approach, their disruptive potential, but there's this question that keeps coming up. Is DeepSeek genuinely a force for good, or is this all part of some grand plan by the Chinese government?
That's the billion-dollar question. And there's no easy answer. It probably falls somewhere in the middle.
Because their open source approach could be genuine, right? Maybe they really do want to democratize AI, but it also aligns perfectly with China's national AI strategy. Becoming a global leader in AI, achieving technological independence. And DeepSeek's success sends a clear message. China is a force to be reckoned with in the tech world.
Right. It's a direct challenge to the West's dominance.
So it's a complicated situation, a lot of layers.
Definitely.
But one thing's for sure, DeepSeek has everyone's attention. The world is watching to see what they do next.
Now let's focus on DeepSeek's open source approach. At first glance, it seems like a win-win. They release their models, anyone can use them, everyone collaborates.
Like the Wikipedia of AI.
Yeah, but as they say, with great power comes great responsibility, right?
And open source has its critics.
Oh, definitely.
What happens if these powerful models end up in the wrong hands? What if they're used for malicious purposes?
That's a huge concern. Think about it. Sophisticated phishing scams.
Deepfakes that are indistinguishable from reality.
And then there's the possibility of autonomous weapon systems powered by open source AI.
That's a scary thought. It's a reminder that technology is a tool. It can be used for good or bad. And as we unlock its power, we need to be incredibly mindful of the potential consequences.
We can't just focus on the shiny new toys. We have to ask, who's responsible for making sure this technology is developed and used ethically?
Who sets the boundaries? Especially with open source, it's decentralized, right? There's no one person in charge.
But that doesn't mean we're powerless. We need to have these conversations about the risks.
Establish some ground rules.
Guidelines, best practices.
And figure out how we hold people accountable.
There's been talk of creating a global body to oversee AI development.
Like a watchdog.
Kind of, yeah. Similar to the International Atomic Energy Agency, but for AI.
Interesting. Are there other ideas being explored?
Well, some are looking at technical solutions like watermarking techniques to identify AI-generated content.
So you can tell if something's real or fake.
Exactly. Or tools to detect bias in AI models.
We need to strike a balance, encourage innovation.
But also minimize the risks.
The future of AI depends on it.
Now, before we get too caught up in the potential downsides, it's important to remember that open source AI also has huge potential for good.
I mean, we're already seeing it. Diagnosing diseases earlier.
Education, personalized learning.
Making quality education more accessible.
And environmental science, tracking climate change.
Optimizing energy consumption.
Finding sustainable solutions.
The possibilities are pretty amazing.
It's like crowdsourcing a better future.
Yeah, so while we need to be aware of the risks, we shouldn't let fear stop us.
We need to approach AI with a sense of optimism, embrace the potential.
But actively work to mitigate the harms.
Well said. I think it's safe to look ahead. What does DeepSeek's emergence mean for the future of AI development?
Big question.
What are the long-term implications of their open source approach? And what does all of this mean for you, the listener? We can explore some possibilities to watch for.
Factors that will shape the AI landscape.
So let's start with the impact on the AI industry itself.
We've already seen the initial shockwaves.
Nvidia's stock plunge.
But this goes deeper than that.
This is about a fundamental shift in how AI is developed and who controls it.
Because for years, the narrative has been you need massive data sets, supercomputers,
deep pockets.
But DeepSeek changed that narrative.
They've shown that you don't need to be a tech behemoth
to make significant progress.
They've leveled the playing field,
democratized access to these powerful AI tools,
and challenged this assumption that bigger is always better,
which could have a profound impact on the industry.
We might see a shift away from this winner-takes-all dynamic.
Instead of a handful of companies controlling everything.
We could see a more diverse ecosystem.
Smaller players, Startups, research institutions,
all making significant contributions, potentially faster innovation,
lower prices.
and a greater focus on developing AI solutions that meet a wider range of needs.
It's like opening the floodgates, letting in a whole new wave of talent and ideas.
Which is exciting.
Incredibly exciting.
Now let's talk about jobs.
A lot of people are worried about AI taking their jobs.
It's a valid concern.
And it's true that some jobs will be displaced.
But throughout history, technological advancements have always disrupted the job market,
The Industrial Revolution.
led to the decline of agricultural jobs,
But it also created new industries.
new professions,
The key is to adapt.
learn new skills.
Embrace the opportunities that AI creates.
There will be a growing demand for people who can build, maintain, and manage AI systems. AI will transform industries, creating new roles that we haven't even imagined yet.
So it's not about fearing AI,
It's about seeing it as a tool.
a partner in progress.
By embracing lifelong learning and adaptability, we can harness AI's power to create a better future.
Absolutely. Now, what about creativity? How is AI impacting the creative fields?
We're already seeing AI being used to generate music, art, literature.
Video games.
The results are pretty impressive.
But does that mean AI is going to replace human artists?
No, I don't think so.
Creativity is a human endeavor.
It's about expression, connection, making sense of the world.
AI can be a tool for creativity?
But it can't replace the human element.
So it's not about AI versus humans,
It's about AI and humans working together.
combining their strengths.
AI can handle the technical side, explore new possibilities.
And humans bring the vision, the emotion, the storytelling.
Together, they can create something truly remarkable.
Something greater than the sum of its parts.
So as we wrap up, let's bring it back to you. What does all this mean for your life, your work, your future?
AI is already transforming our world.
And DeepSeek is accelerating that transformation.
It's affecting everything.
The job market,
The creative industries.
our understanding of ethics and governance,
We need to stay informed.
engage in these conversations.
Be proactive in shaping the future of AI.
The choices we make now will have a ripple effect.
So stay curious, stay engaged, keep asking questions.
The AI revolution is just beginning.
And it's up to all of us to ensure it leads to a future that benefits everyone.
And that's a wrap on our deep dive into DeepSeek.
We hope you found it insightful,
Thought-provoking.
maybe even a little bit inspiring.
If you enjoyed this episode,
Please hit that like button
and subscribe to our channel.
for more deep dives into the world of technology.
And as always, let us know your thoughts in the comments.
What are your hopes and fears about the future of AI? We'd love to hear from you.
Thanks for joining us.
And we'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.